Stephen, as I hear you speak, you're sapping the confidence out of my prediction for this game. So most of the offseason, I've been thinking, okay, I can't wait for this game just like everybody else. It's going to be a great game. No way can I feel extra confident in this pick, but I really liked what I saw out of the Seminoles late last season. Again, after the debacle against Louisville last year, they played really, really well. The Clemson game was down to the wire. They beat a really good Michigan team in the Orange Bowl. They played really well down the stretch. And with Francois coming back and with indications that the offensive line would be shored up, and with Cam Akers coming into the scene. And again, you can't expect a whole lot on week number one, especially against this defense, but infusing more life into the running game. And with Derwin James back on the field as maybe the best defensive player in college football, and all that talent in the secondary in particular, and with a Mr. Matthew Thomas, assuming that he was going to play at that point and be at full strength and ready to go. And I thought, hey, Titanic matchup, but I kind of like the playmaking of Francois and his ability to throw from the pocket, something that Hurts has not shown us. And I was swinging Florida State. Now, I haven't made my official prediction here, but I made some early indications based on how I seeded the records and the standings for my ACC predictions that Florida State would win this game. And now I'm thinking, wow, this offensive line issue for Florida State is something that's difficult for me to get past, and might prove to be, as you mentioned, Francois can do a lot with his legs and trying to buy an extra split second, but you can only do that for so long against elite athletes on the other side of the field. So that's going to be something to overcome.
Now, I'm not saying Florida State has no chance. That's not what I'm saying. Florida State can honestly make this game as competitive as possible. I look at this Florida State secondary with McFadden and James and Nate Andrews. They've got some guys in that secondary that can play ball. On that front line, Jacob Pugh, Derek Nadeeb, Brian Burns, and Josh Sweat can come out for the quarterback. Alabama's offensive line, in particular, that right side, they have to come ready to play. All that I'm saying is, for Florida State at wide receiver, you got to be able to work back to Francois, because if Alabama can create pressure with four and Francois is running for his life and he can't see you working back to him, but that's a difficult situation to be in. And then you look at, Florida State's going to want to run the football, but Alabama's pride on not letting you run the football. This is why you have Deron Payne and Deshaun Hand and Sean Dion Hamilton and so many of these guys returning, because they want to one-up the guys that left. In politics, in sports, in life, you always want to one-up your predecessor. And everyone talks about, well, Jonathan Allen's gone, Tim Williams is gone, Ryan Anderson's gone, Reuben Foster's gone. There's no way, these guys coming behind them can outdo them, right? Well, it's their passion. That's what they want to do. They want to outdo the guys that just left. So when I look at this situation, Florida State, if the offensive line cannot provide DeAndre Francois enough time, I'm even simplify this. If Florida State's offensive line has the slightest issue with Deron Payne, big number 94 in the middle, it's going to be a long day for Florida State.
All right, Stephen, since Alabama and Nick Saban have gone on this run of scheduling these difficult, generally neutral site games for week one, this is the biggest game that they've faced, and on paper, the most difficult opponent. So in my quick assessment of watching all these games, and the specifics, and you scouted and prepared for the games, and the rosters, but I watched all the games. So West Virginia was an interesting one because there was no comparison between the teams, but just airing out the ball, Clint Trickett was able to keep them in the game, and Blake Sims hadn't gotten his sea legs or a grasp of the offense yet. So that was a very interesting game. The Virginia Tech games were decent games. Virginia Tech was really good defensively and in special teams, but they weren't nearly good enough to keep it really close. The one game that I thought was intriguing from a physical standpoint is that Wisconsin was man enough across the board to stand up to Alabama. And that was like a one-score game, close to the fourth quarter. But Wisconsin just didn't have the athletes to. They finally broke their back in the fourth quarter with those long Derrick Henry runs in that particular game. Michigan wasn't an issue. They didn't have a quarterback who could throw the ball. Denard Robinson was a running back playing quarterback. And so this Florida State team, they're now facing a top 5 team, legitimately one of the best 3 to 5 teams in the country.
This is a blockbuster, marquee, monumental matchup. This is the matchup where you go and you get the popcorn, the drinks, the cookies, the chips, a little bit of candy on the side. This is that matchup. And it comes down to a lot of scenarios. The main one for me, you cannot have penalties. Alabama last year, a lot of those offside penalties. Alabama cannot afford penalties. You can't afford a lot of turnovers in this game if you're Alabama. And the majority of Alabama's losses under Nick Saban, they've come under self-inflicted situations where Alabama's either had a lot of penalties or they've had a lot of turnovers, i.e. the Ole Miss game from 2015 where Alabama had 4 to 5 turnovers in that football game. So penalties, turnovers, whoever can play mistake-free football is going to be the team that comes out on top in this game. But I mention this a lot, Mark. I'm a fat kid in a skinny kid's body. So it goes back once again to the guys in the trenches. If the guys in the trenches, whoever can impose their will for 60 minutes, that's going to be the football team to win this game. We can talk about quarterback play all we want to, and quarterback play is important. Jalen Hurts, DeAndre Francois, they both have a job to do. But at the end of the day, the offensive line for Florida State, can it hold its own? The right side of the offensive line for Alabama, can it hold its own? And then also, my goodness, special teams. That will play a factor. Florida State's got a kicker, the Aguayo family. They can all kick. And you got Ricky Aguayo coming back, who made 12 out of 12 field goals from 40-plus yards. And then for Alabama, you got J.K. Scott, more than likely the best punter in college football, flipping the field. Hopefully the kicking situation for Alabama will be sound in week 1. So, watch special teams also. But as far as offense and defense go, the men in the trenches will have to show up again.